Part 109. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 1081. Chapter 1081. This child has no father. Nangong Luo felt that he was here to suffer. Does she have to see the person she likes with another man she likes before she gives up? Still not reconciled. After a few clicks on the phone screen, the owner of the number he knew by heart belonged to Gongkin Li. He still dialed the number with luck, and then saw Gongkin Li pick up the phone and take a look at it before hanging up. When things have developed to this point, people suddenly feel a chill all over their body. Lu Li, it was my fault. It was my reluctance and longing for you that made me unable to let go of this relationship, and I even had wild fantasies about it. He never wanted to stay in this place to see the intimate flirting of the two people, and he was disappointed with his hesitation. Zhonyun called again, with a cry in her anxious tone. This time it's a real cry for help. Nangong Luo, my pregnancy was discovered by my family. Now they are asking me whose child I am. I don't dare to say, I really don't dare. If I tell them that it is Ao's child, this child will never survive tomorrow. Nangong Luo, please save my child. Zhonyun's anxious cry for help came from the phone, and you could even hear a dong 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 knock on the door from the other end. Zhonyun locked herself in the house, afraid to let people in, but her family members chased her for answers. Help me, I only need one word from you now. One word can save a child's life. Zhonyun. As soon as Nangong Luo called her name, Zhonyun didn't want to hear his voice of rejection again. Nangong Luo. Ao died for you. His death is not something that the money you gave can heal all the pain. If you don't save this child, you will be sorry to Ao. Ao is dead. My only hope in this life is this unborn child. If you are not willing to lie for 10 months to save him, then I will take the child to the underworld to keep Ao company. When the time comes, then our family will be able to reunite. The knocking on the door became louder and louder, and he could hear the noisy voices of the Zhone family through the phone. Zhonyun's voice became smaller and smaller, and in the end, her tone was not only desolate, but also felt like she had no life left to live. Nangong Luo knew that Zhonyun and Fang Yu were in love. If it was true as Zhonyun said, the Zhone family would force her to abort the child, then, maybe something bad would really happen. But if he agrees to marry another woman? Nangong Luo's inner fire was boiling fiercely. Zhonyun, don't worry about it. I contacted the Zhone family and told them that I have an appointment with you. You can come out when you have the opportunity. Nangong Luo wanted to help her delay time, but Zhonyun suddenly smiled. I heard a sad sneer in my ears. It was Zhonyun's voice. Can you hide for a while and hide for the rest of your life? Boom. Suddenly a loud noise was heard, and the Zhone family members broke in directly and surrounded Zhonyun. Yun'er, who are you calling? Zhonyun hid her cell phone behind her back. Mrs. Zhong looked very ugly. Yun'er, I don't care who you are trying to hide for. Since you refuse to tell, then follow me to the hospital. Our Zhone family cannot tolerate your scandal. Nangong Luo only heard Mrs. Zhong's words, and the call with Zhonyun was suddenly interrupted. Over at Zhonyun, the cell phone fell on the ground, and Mrs. Zhong ordered someone to forcibly restrain her. Let's go to the hospital. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 1082. Chapter 1082. 3. Horn. Love. Zhonyun's phone calls can no longer be reached. Nangong Luo's mind was very confused. Fang Yu's guilt and unwillingness to let go of Gongkin Li all came to his mind. He suddenly rushed into the Sunshine Garden. No longer needing to keep a sneaky eye, he went straight to find Gongkin Li. Nangong Luo suddenly appeared, and the glass door blocking him seemed to sense the approach of the person and automatically moved to both sides. Nangong Luo narrowed his eyes slightly and pulled Gongkin Li up just as he turned around, Follow me. Guchensi sat on the chair with his legs crossed, as steady as a rock. He watched calmly as Nangong Luo rushed in and forcibly dragged his date away. He neither spoke to stop nor took any action to catch up. Hey, 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 Gongkin Li threw the chopsticks on the table before she even had time to put them down. Oh my god. There's nothing wrong with your mouth. Since the person standing in front of her was Nangong Luo, she covered the corner of her mouth with her hand and wiped it. Although it is unhygienic, appearance is more important in front of the person you like. Nangong Luo only stopped after pulling her out of Sunshine Garden. Gongkin Li, who had just eaten, was a little uncomfortable with this rhythm. Luo, what are you doing? Li just now he pulled Gongkin Li out on impulse, but now that he thought about it, why did he question her? Gongkin Li's feelings were already very clear. If he asked again, he would only be humiliating himself. Nangong Luo suddenly changed the subject. Lu Li, how much courage does it take for a woman to be willing to give birth to a child for a man? Huh, Gongkin Li was very surprised. What kind of problem do you have? No matter what the question is, answer me first. Gongkin Li blinked and said her thoughts. Of course, a woman is gambling with her life when giving birth to a child. It must be very important. Then if one of my choices against my will can save a child's life, do you think I should save it? Then it depends on whether the price you choose to pay against your will is more important than a life. I forgive his selfishness. If he could have the girl he liked, he really wouldn't want to marry another woman for a child. What are you talking about? It's so strange that you suddenly called me out to ask these questions. What's wrong with you? Last question, do you really like Gongkin Li? Before Nangong Luo's question could be asked clearly, Guchensi's cold and unique voice forced his way in. People are already within 3 meters of them. Your things. Guchensi handed the document bag to Gongkin Li with a deep expression, and warned, it's always so careless, with such important things. Gongkin Li retorted unhappily, what do you mean by always being careless? Didn't I forget about it when I was suddenly pulled out? Heh, when we were eating inside just now, someone looked stupid. Wow, Guchensi, I think we should have a fight. Nangong Luo could clearly hear the bickering between the two. Nangong Luo always felt that she had hope if she stayed by Gongkin Li's side, because when Gongkin Li pursued Guchensi, she always wanted to please her. Only people she knew very well or people she didn't care about would use such indifferent ways. Conversational tone. From Nangong Luo's point of view, Guchensi was not a stranger that Gongkin Li didn't care about, so he had a good relationship with her. Looking at Guchensi's reaction, it seems that she is serious and got her wish. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1083. Chapter 1083. Agree to a fake marriage. Gongkin Li actually didn't say a few words to Guchensi because she cared more about Nangong Luo now. Okay, I got the things, thank you Dr. Gu. She raised her hand and waved, a tactful way of saying goodbye. According to Lycan 11's character, he definitely doesn't want to stay here. Gongkin Li made a miscalculation. Guk in West Africa not only didn't leave, but was as stable as Mount Tai. Glancing at it, she moved to Nangong Luo's side, only to see Nangong Luo answer the phone, frowning without saying a few words, and his expression looked very serious. In less than half a minute, Nangong Luo hung up the phone. Luo, what happened? After Gongkin Li finished speaking, Nangong Luo suddenly took a step forward and hugged her. The intimate contact brought Gongkin Li's memory back to that night in Hong Kong, and 2 blushes crept onto her cheeks. But before she could express her shyness, Nangong Luo lowered his head and hurriedly said a word in her ear before letting her go. Luli, I wish you happiness. The rest of my life without you is destined to be a regret, but even if I can't get what I want, I still hold a sincere heart and wish my favorite girl happiness forever. Nangong Luo's figure passed her. As soon as Gong Qinli turned around, Gu Jinsi suddenly stretched out his hand to stop her movement. You'd better not catch up. What do you mean? Nangong Luo drove the car to the hospital as fast as possible. Because he had just received a call from the housekeeper of the Zhong family, telling him that Zhong Yun had been forcibly taken to the hospital by Mrs. Zhong. Butler Zhong found out that Zhong Yun was contacting him when he picked up Zhong Yun's cell phone that fell on the ground, so he called him immediately after Mrs. Zhong took Zhong Yun away. He has been unwilling to agree to Zhong Yun's request. The child in Zhong Yun's belly has now become her talisman. Nangong Luo was really scared, afraid that he would kill two people. Hurrying to the hospital without stopping, he saw Mrs. Zhong guarding the operating room. Stop. Mrs. Zhong was very dissatisfied with Nangong Luo's sudden appearance. Mr. Nangong, why do you appear here? Aunt Zhong, this matter is very complicated. I want to see Zhong Yun first. At the critical moment, Nangong Luo rescued Zhong Yun, who had just been put on the operating table. Zhong Yun could barely stand when she got off the operating table. When she saw Nangong Luo, she clung to him as the last straw, crying and pleading in his ears. Please, save my child. Mrs. Zhong took a step back for the sake of the Nangong family. Nangong Luo took Zhong Yun to the other side to a place where no one was around. Zhong Yun held his hand tightly. Nangong Luo proposed, Zhong Yun, let me send you abroad. Zhong Yun's eyes changed and she suddenly shook him off. You still refuse to save me. I promise to help you. The Zhong family will not allow a child with an unknown father to be born, do you understand? Zhong Yun asked excitedly, her eyes red. Forget it. The tone suddenly changed, and Zhong Yun kept backing up, he, you are really hard-hearted. 10 months of lies are not worth saving your life. It was me who was wrong, and Au was wrong as well. I misbelieved about you. Zhong Yun smiled sadly at Nangong Luo, her eyes filled with despair. She suddenly turned around and ran downstairs. Nangong Luo quickly caught up with her and held her tightly. Zhong Yun kept struggling, since my child is destined not to survive, then I will take him to die with me. I'll help you. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1084. Chapter 1084. There is always a male lead who wants to take the top spot. When she went back to see Mrs. Zhong again, the tears on Zhong Yun's face had been wiped away. Mrs. Zhong's expression was ugly. She forced Zhong Yun back to her side. Yun'er, does this matter have something to do with Nangong Luo? When Mrs. Zhong asked questions, Zhong Yun would look up at Nangong Luo, his eyes full of prayer. Nangong Luo clenched his fists slightly, and nodded under the gaze of mother and daughter. Yes, I will be responsible for Zhong Yun's affairs. Mrs. Zhong was furious. You too. I really don't understand what you young people are going to do. Zhong Yun took her hand and shook it, asking for forgiveness. Mom, please forgive me, because I broke up with Luo, so I didn't tell you. Because the time of Zhong Yun's pregnancy was counted as the passionate love period between Zhong Yun and Nangong Luo. We are all adults and no one doubts whether they are really together. Mrs. Zhong snorted heavily and said directly, then I don't care. Since Yun'er is pregnant with your child, you have to be responsible for her. Mrs. Zhong used to be polite and smiling when meeting Nangong Luo, but now she turned against him after knowing that he got her daughter pregnant without a name. Nangong Luo didn't care about Mrs. Zhong's attitude, because he only agreed to play the role of husband and wife with Zhong Yun for 10 months and repay Fang Yu with his life. So when Mrs. Zhong asked him to take responsibility, he responded directly, Auntie, please don't worry, there was a small conflict between Zhong Yun and I before. Since she is pregnant now, I will naturally be responsible for the child. He is just responsible for this child. Although Mrs. Joan was sullen and unhappy, she didn't go too far. She just forced him to promise to marry Jeon Yoon as soon as possible. Gong Kin Lee, who followed, watched this scene and heard Nangong Luo's promise to Jeon Yoon with her own ears. She almost couldn't help but rush out to question him. Gu Jinsi pulled her back, covered her mouth tightly and took her away. Gong Kin Lee was struggling the whole time. Gu Jinsi, let me go. Let you go, and what next? Let you go and grab Luo and Jeon Yoon to fight? Gu Jinsi asked her two questions in a row, with a sarcastic sneer on his lips. They are lovers, and who do you think you are? Who are you to question other people's feelings? What identity? What identity is needed to solve the doubt? Maybe I heard it wrong just now, and we just understood it wrong. Gong Kin Lee kept pushing Gu Jinsi's hand away. Gu Jinsi suddenly pinched her wrist so hard that she felt pain. Seeing that she was unwilling to face reality, Gu Jinsi repeated clearly in her ear, Jeon Yoon is pregnant. She is Luo's child. Why do you think so? It's up to me. You. No one denies that Luo likes you, but please see the reality clearly, unless you think you can erase the existence of that child. A harsh word penetrated her heart like a cold wind, and she suddenly felt desolate and helpless. She slowly raised her eyes and saw a layer of fear on Gu Jinsi's frosty face. Gong Kin Lee gave up struggling, and Gu Jinsi gradually let go of her hand. Until the moment she let go completely, her hand dropped directly. Slowly squatting against the wall, she buried her head between her knees and arms to cover up her uncontrollable emotions. Then who am I? Jeon Yoon is pregnant, so Nangong Luo wants to marry Jeon Yoon. What about her? The indulgence and passion of that night were nothing. The title is a bit scratched. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1085. Chapter 1085 Nangong Luo is married. What, you want to marry Jeon Yoon, the daughter of the Jeon family? Mrs. Nangong, who was doing beauty care outside, suddenly received a call from Nangong Luo. When she heard that Nangong Luo said that she wanted to marry Jeon Yoon, the mask almost collapsed. Mrs. Nangong waved everyone around her to leave, and asked Nangong Luo several questions in succession. Luo, are you kidding, Mom? Didn't you and Jeon Yoon break up already? Why are you together again and talking about getting married? Jeon Yoon is pregnant. When Mrs. Nangong heard the news, she was angry and confused. Is it really your child? Have you really decided to be with Jeon Yoon? You bastard! Mrs. Nangong learned from her son that his ex-girlfriend Jeon Yoon was pregnant. In addition, Nangong Luo said that he wanted to marry Jeon Yoon. It was obvious that she was really his. Hearing Nangong Luo's affirmative answer, Mrs. Nangong patted her chest to calm herself down. I'm going home now. Please tell me carefully. Mrs. Nangong stopped enjoying the service after hanging up the phone, and rushed home with her bag. She originally wanted to ask Jeon Yoon to clearly at home, but she didn't expect Nangong Luo to take Jeon Yoon to home directly and tell them that the two had obtained a marriage certificate. All this happened so suddenly, Mrs. Nangong almost hit my Nangong Luo on the head with a feather duster. You kid, you didn't know to tell us such a big thing earlier. We don't know yet, so you just take them to get the certificate. Mom, the plank is finished. What Nangong Luo did seemed unstoppable, but Mrs. Nangong was so panicked. Mrs. Nangong pulled her son to the corner, deliberately suppressing her voice and asked, don't you like Li Yulai? Why is Jeon Yoon pregnant? Is it really your child? After all, he is his son who he raised. Mrs. Nangong still knows very well what kind of character Nangong Luo is. Mrs. Nangong knew that the person Nangong Luo liked had always been Gong Kin Lee, but now a child suddenly appeared, so she had to be more careful. But Nangong Luo told her for sure, "Mom, don't doubt it. It happened when I was with her." Nangong Luo insisted that he was his own child and was responsible for Zhong Yun. Mrs. Nangong was angry at first, but then she figured it out, and became a little excited when she saw Zhong Yun. She had been looking forward to it for a long time, waiting for her son to marry a daughter-in-law and let her have a grandchild. Now that her wish was about to come true, she must have been in a happy mood. "Yunur, I have heard what Luo said about you. Since you two are already together, we, Nangong Luo, will immediately prepare for your wedding." This. When she heard the word wedding, Zhong Yun looked up at Nangong Luo, seeming a little shy. Nangong Luo refused with an indifferent expression, "Mom, there is no need to spend a lot of time, Zhong Yun and I have decided not to hold a wedding." He only reached a 10-month contract with Zhong Yun, how could he hold a wedding specially for Zhong Yun? Zhong Yun is not the girl he wants to marry. He just needs to keep the child alive in a legitimate name. But this is incomprehensible to others. Neither Mrs. Nangong nor the Zhong family can understand it. This incident was a bit unpleasant. Nangong Luo and Zhong Yun told them in unison, "We will not hold a wedding." In order to appease the Luo party, the Chinese Valentine's Day spoiler reveals that Nangong Luo did not marry Zhong Yun. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1086. Chapter 1086. Crying loudly, the pain in Li Yuli's heart. Gong Qinli cried loudly when she returned home, her eyes filled with tears that she couldn't stop. When her little cousin came to visit again and found out about her condition, she almost cried out of fear, "Sister, why are you crying?" Gong Qinli looked back at him, then buried herself in the quilt and continued to cry. Gong Qinli rarely cries. She has been a bully since she was a child. She cried so sadly today, which scared the Gong family. "Sister," the little cousin went over and held her hand. Gong Qinli brushed away his little paws and cried to vent her emotions regardless. Since childhood, nothing has ever made her so at a loss. She is now like a lost child, feeling confused on an empty and deserted road. The little cousin couldn't persuade her. Seeing his sister crying so sadly, he started crying too, and still went to grab Gong Qinli's hand. "Sister, stop crying." Gong Qinli kept brushing it away, and accidentally pushed her little cousin to the ground with too much force. The little cousin simply sat down on the ground and cried wow even harder. Gong Qinli hurriedly wiped her tears with her hands, turned around and pulled her little cousin up. "Qinyu, I'm sorry, sister didn't mean it." In fact, the little cousin was not hurt by the fall. He cried because he was infected by Gong Qinli's cry. Now looking at Gong Qinli's tear-stained face, the little cousin felt sad, wow wow wow, and cried louder, sobbing intermittently to comfort her. "Sister, if you don't cry, Qian, you won't feel pain." Gong Qinli hugged her little cousin into her arms, and the two of them hugged each other, as if this could alleviate each other's sadness. "Qinyu is sorry, Qinyu is sorry." Gong Qinli called her little cousin's name over and over again to apologize, but it didn't seem like she was apologizing. Her voice became smaller and smaller, and in the end there were only 3 words, "I'm sorry," in an endless loop. Although she was hugging Gong Qinyu, in fact it was like grasping a strong straw, allowing her to cling to the root of the straw and vent her uneasiness and confusion. The 2 Gong siblings cried loudly at home. It was unknown how long it took for them to stop crying, leaving the whole room filled with sobbing. Gong Qinli then remembered her gaffe. But when she wanted to cover it up, the palace lady had already received the news and rushed back. Mrs. Gong saw that Gong Qinli and Gong Qinyu's eyes were red. Gong Qinyu looked like she was trying on clothes, while Gong Kin Lee's eyes were red and swollen. This almost frightened Mrs. Gong. "Can you, Lee Yulai, what happened?" Since childhood, Mrs. Gong has never seen Gong Kin Lee cry like this. Seeing the sister and brother's eyes that were red from crying, Mrs. Gong's whole heart was high. The little cousin simply ran to the kitchen and washed his face, and his emotions almost disappeared. "I saw my sister crying in the room, crying very sadly, and I cried too." Hearing the reason why his little cousin was crying, even Gong Kin Lee, who was immersed in sadness, couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. But his words only broke the deadlock temporarily. Mrs. Gong coaxed the little guy a few words and asked the housekeeper to take him away, leaving her and her daughter alone. Mrs. Gong raised her hand to wipe the tears from the corner of her daughter's eyes with special distress, as if her heart was being grabbed by a hand. "Lu Li, good daughter, tell mom what happened." Gong Kin Lee reached out and hugged her mother, crying, "Mom, he's married, he's with another woman." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1087. Chapter 1087 Li Yulai's Confession. Gong Kin Lee hugged her mother and cried. Mrs. Gong had already understood from her intermittent words, "Li Yulai, you. What you like is, Nangong Luo." Now, everything makes sense. Although Gong Kin Lee rejected Nangong Luo at the wedding, she began to lose interest in Gu Jinsi from then on. Not only did she refuse the Gu family's marriage, but she also actively ran to Mr. Nangong. Mrs. Gong was afraid that her guess would upset her daughter, so she gave her time to think clearly. However, she did not expect that her daughter would have such a miserable life. Pursuing the love she gets is not sincerity. When she discovers the sincerity, it is too late. Everyone knows that Zhong Yun and Nangong Luo were together during that time. Now that Zhong Yun is pregnant with Nangong Luo's child, there is absolutely no hope between Gong Kin Lee and Nangong Luo. "Lu Li, my precious daughter. Don't cry for a man, it's arranged, isn't it just a man, without him, you will meet a better person." Gong Kin Lee shook her head and choked, "But mom, I like him, I only like him." It was only now that she dared to speak her mind. She was no longer afraid of others' words and expressed her feelings directly. But, it's all too late. "Lu Li, why are you disobedient?" Mrs. Gong, who felt sorry for her daughter, turned her head and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, because she did not allow herself to be weak in front of her daughter, otherwise it would only make her daughter more sad. What you miss can only be missed. Their affairs have become a foregone conclusion. If you refuse to give up, you will always be the one who suffers and gets hurt. Mrs. Gong patted her daughter on the back, conveying warmth and comfort to her. Gong Kin Lee shook her head. She also wanted to let it go, but "I can't let go." She felt very uncomfortable when she thought of that person. The relationship of more than 10 years did not happen overnight. If she could let it go, she would not be in such pain. Gong Kin Lee returned to her room in despair. She looked up and saw the photos hanging on the wall and the small objects on the table. Her emotions rose sharply. She picked up the blue glass ball and held it in her hand. When she shook it, it made a crisp silver bell sound. As if he couldn't control his hand, he picked up the landline on the table and called the Nangong family's internal phone number. Someone quickly answered the call, but it was certainly not the voice she wanted to hear. When the other party answered the phone politely, she heard the name Yuner coming from the phone. Hang up the phone with a pop sound. Gong Kin Lee tightened her grip on the glass ball in her hand. When the veins on the back of her hand popped out, she suddenly turned around and threw the thing out of the window. The window door closed with a bang, and she slid down against the wall. Her self-righteousness and her sincerity are wrong. The man she thought she could trust for the rest of her life suddenly married someone else. Who am I? To you, I, Gong Kin Lee, am nothing. That day he asked, How much courage does it take for a woman to be willing to give birth to a child for a man? But why didn't he ask how sincere it must be for a man to willingly give his body to a man without any profit? Close your eyes helplessly. The familiar cell phone ringtone rang in my ears. Gong Lee stood up slowly and picked up the hand puppet stiffly like a mechanical movement. She just couldn't help but open her mouth after receiving the call, as if she didn't react. The corners of her mouth moved a few times, and her voice trembled a little. Wei Yi is going to give birth. Only one is about to give birth. How many boys and girls are there? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1088. Chapter 1088. What does her giving birth have to do with me? Gong Lee rushed to the hospital before she could collect her emotions. Yi, how is she doing now? A group of people were already standing outside the delivery room, including those from the Ye family, the Mo family, and their friends. Gong Lee arrived relatively quickly, but her red and swollen eyes almost scared others. Lu Li, what's wrong with you? It was rare for Yuan Ran to take the initiative to care about people, because Gong Lee's appearance was really worrying. Gong Lee shook her head and lied, "It's okay, I got sand in my eyes." At this time, Nangong Luo also hurried over. When Gong Lee saw him appearing, she stood behind Yuan Ran without leaving a trace, blocking Nangong Luo's sight. As smart as Yuan Ran, she is also willing to help Gong Lee. Beiya happened to be standing on Yuan Ran's side again, and the two of them just blocked Gong Lee. Nangong Luo glanced over there and found Gong Lee's figure, but he didn't dare and couldn't talk to her calmly now. Nangong Luo and Gong Lee, the two former good friends, are now standing on opposite sides, neither one taking the initiative to find the other. Yezikin entered the delivery room regardless of accompanying Ye. More than an hour passed, and nothing happened. Whether they were in the delivery room or waiting outside, everyone was worried and didn't look relaxed. Gong Lee's eyes hurt badly. She whispered a few words to Yuan Ran and turned around the corner to leave. She went out to find ice packs to apply to her eyes, and it took a while for her eyes to feel comfortable. Before she left, she told Yuan Ran that she should contact her as soon as possible if a child was born or there were any special circumstances. She hasn't received Yuan Ran's message yet, and she has to be patient to deal with her red and swollen eyes, which are really scary. When the swelling in her eyes subsided, she sighed deeply. I was about to rush back, but I didn't expect to bump into Gu Jinsi on this short journey. Gong Lee will remember the bad scene when she sees him, so now she doesn't even want to say hello politely, she just pretends she didn't see him. Just when she was about to pass by Gu Jinsi indifferently, a strong hand suddenly grabbed her tightly. Gong Lee tried hard to shake him but couldn't break free. What are you doing? She glared at Gu Jinsi displeased. Gu Jinsi did not answer, but stared into her eyes. Hey, it's so miserable. None of your business. Someone couldn't hold it back and she swore directly. The true nature is exposed. Let me go, I can't get away. She suddenly remembered, Yi is about to give birth, and you haven't made it. What does her having a child have to do with me? You are really indifferent. If you don't go, don't disturb me, otherwise don't blame me for being rude to you. If you can't get rid of your hands, just move your feet. Gu Jinsi let her go. Gong Lee ran away quickly. I thought about how cold-hearted Gu Jinsi was. A woman's life was a bet when giving birth. After knowing her for so many years, she didn't pay any attention to him. Although she could not ask Gu Jinsi how to treat others, Gong Lee, who had always been kind-hearted, could not agree with Gu Jinsi's character. However, when Gong Lee walked quickly back to the delivery room, Gu Jinsi slowly followed. Gong Lee disappeared for a while and then came back with Gu Jinsi. In the eyes of some people, this was not just a chance encounter. My heart was filled with panic. Gong Lee was still standing behind Yuan, and the two whispered a few words. It wasn't until Yuan Ran glanced back that Gong Qinli looked back. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1089. Chapter 1089. Yewei is born. You won't know if you don't look at it, but you will be shocked when you look at it. But outside the delivery room, everyone was waiting anxiously, and they couldn't think of anything else. Occasionally, screams of pain can be heard from inside. Gong Qinli was a little impetuous. My heart is beating so hard. Isn't the only due date still 1 week away? Yuan Ran comforted her. It's almost time, so there's no telling. She is already more than 9 months pregnant, which is the normal time for delivery. She is a few days ahead of her expected date, which is considered within the normal range. 2 hours have passed. 3 hours have passed. People outside can hear the painful screams of mothers coming from inside. No one who comes here feels impatient. On the contrary, the longer they wait, the more uneasy they become. Why did it take so long? It sounds so painful. Gong Qinli squeezed the fingers of her hands tightly, and the screams that reached her ears made her feel uneasy. Yuan Ran, who was a little calmer, comforted her. Before going in, Qiao insisted that she would have a natural birth within the feasible range. I'm so anxious, please God bless me in times of crisis. People who believe in science begin to believe in Buddhism. In fact, everyone was anxious, but they tried their best to endure it and comfort each other. It's already chaotic inside, and they can only worry outside. Gong Qinli always talks to Yuan Ran in a low voice, and Nangong Luo often can't help but look over here. He almost couldn't help it many times, but when he saw Gu Jinsi standing next to Gong Qinli, and the meaningful gaze that Gu Jinsi cast towards him intentionally or unintentionally, he could only clench his fists and warn himself, you need to recognize the reality clearly and help her. He can't give his beloved girl the happiness she wants, so he can only silently let her get what she wants. Wow dash. Wow dash. The sound of babies crying one after another was heard, and everyone standing guard outside the delivery room came forward one after another. Give birth, give birth. Everyone present had different expressions, but they all breathed a sigh of relief. While they were waiting, the delivery room staff did not open it for a long time. Before they could react, another woman's scream of pain came from inside. What's up? In addition to the cries of babies, there are also the screams of pregnant women. The sounds are intertwined, making people outside even more anxious. At this time, not only Gong Qinli, an impatient person, could not hold back, but even the calm Yuan Ran's hands were trembling. Beiya held her in his arms and said, don't worry. Yuan Ran shook his head, I'm fine, it's just inside. Be protected. Yuan Ran the whole time, and now Gong Qinli was embarrassed to use her as a shield anymore, so she moved to the side, just close to Nangong Luo. The familiar breath made her whole body tremble. She tilted her head, forced back her tears, and stood on the other side. Just this movement brought him closer to Gu Jinsi. This was a misunderstanding. She didn't care at all that there was anyone other than Nangong Luo standing next to her. Nangong Luo mistook her behavior for the past, and the pain in his heart increased. It was another baby cry, different from the one before. Yes, twins. The people outside the door were a little restless. They waited a long time, but still did not wait for the people inside to come out. What exactly happened here? One question is the voice of everyone. As these words fell, the door to the delivery room finally opened again. Finally born. Guess how many were born? Randomly recommend books such as Green Plum in Hand, Bamboo Horse Has No Worry, Bamboo Horse Not Enough Pampered, Green Plum Flirting is Addicted, Cute Baby 1v1, Cold Husband, Take the move. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 1090. Chapter 1092. Girls and one boy, triplets. The door to the delivery room is finally open again. Congratulations, you're all safe, the doctor said, a standard congratulation after he came out, and the big stone hanging in everyone's heart finally fell. What's going on there now? Is the child a boy or a girl? They are 2 girls and 1 boy, triplets. Oh my God. Mrs. Ye, who had always been self-possessed and proud, could no longer hold her nerve, and the smile was clearly visible on her face. Old Mrs. Mo even grabbed the Mo family members who had accompanied her here. Her hands were trembling. After a while, she bowed to the outside and said, "God bless, God bless." The birth of twins is rare, let alone triplets. After knowing that the child was safe, there was less anxiety. Yeziwe's safety was ensured, and everyone was still eagerly looking at the child. Pregnant women who have just given birth will spend some time quietly in the delivery room to avoid other problems, while the newborn baby will undergo necessary inspections and cleaning. Although the triplets were born safely, the imbalance of nutrition absorbed by the mother caused the physical constitution of the 3 children to be very different. The eldest child is in good health. The second and third children were put into neonatal incubators after they were born. The only 3 children left in the night had already fallen asleep due to exhaustion. After the observation time in the delivery room was up, she was transferred to the VIP ward, but she still did not wake up. Yezikin stayed by her side every step of the way, as if he didn't care about anyone except his wife. Oh no, he is still very concerned about the situation of his 3 children and will ask about them every once in a while. It's just that he doesn't have the heart to hug or look at it now. If you look closely, you can still see the bloodshot eyes under his eyes, and his facial expression is a little stiff. As long as Yayuyi was in labor pain, his heart was in pain, and after Yayoi fell asleep, he still refused to relax, still waiting for her to wake up with all his attention. Doctors and nurses marveled at his behavior. I have been delivering babies for so many years, and I have never seen a husband from a wealthy family treat his wife like this. Yeah, what a good man. When they talked about it, they had nothing but praise for Yezikin. Because they had seen with their own eyes that man guarded his wife regardless of his status or image, and never relaxed from the beginning to the end. Anyone who saw his expression at that time would feel that he could empathize with the pain. Chenur, go and take a rest. Mrs. really couldn't bear to see her son suffer, so she walked in to persuade him. The only response Madame Ye could receive was a silent shake of the head, representing his rejection. Others wanted to come in and see Yewei, but they were rejected by Yezikin, who loved his wife as much as she loved her. The doctor also said that he would not be disturbed for the time being, and everyone else also gave up their thoughts. Yewei slept peacefully like this for the whole night. When she opened her eyes, her consciousness had not yet fully recovered. She subconsciously pressed her eyes against her lower abdomen, and was surprised to find that the ground that was supposed to be raised became flat. She suddenly woke up. My child. The movements when she was awake disturbed Yezikin next to her. Yezikin quickly held her hand. You finally woke up. How do you feel now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? It's really not Yezikin's style to ask so many questions in a row. Yewei didn't bother to answer and wanted to get up, but the pain was unbearable because of the irritation of the wound. Yezikin, who has always been wise, was scared and overwhelmed by his wife's actions, and even apologized. I'm sorry. Is the little bell great for giving birth to triplets in one go? I made up my mind and imagined the way the always wise brother Chen Sili apologized to Xiao Lingdang. End of this chapter.